All right, so let's dive into this Elementor Pro update. It seems like there's some small tweaks, but I have a feeling these are going to make a big difference in how our websites perform.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even though they might seem small on the surface, these changes can really have a ripple effect on, you know, SEO, user experience, and even just how much of a headache it is for developers.
Yeah, it's like they're fine-tuning the engine under the hood.
Mm.
So before we get too deep into that, can you give us a quick overview of Elementor Pro, just in case some of our listeners aren't super familiar with it?
Sure. Elementor Pro is a visual page builder for WordPress. So basically, it lets you design and customize your website without needing to know any code. And it's super popular. Millions of websites use it. So you can imagine any update they make. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, so we're talking about a lot of websites that could be impacted by this. All right, so this update is all about sticky elements. Um, can you explain what those are and why designers like to use them?
Okay, so imagine you're scrolling through a website and the header just stays put at the top. Or maybe there's a button that kind of follows you down the page. Those are sticky elements. They're great for keeping important things in view, like calls to action or navigation menus, and that can lead to more people clicking on stuff because it's always right there in front of them.
So it's all about user experience then, making things easier for people to use the website. But I'm guessing there was a problem with how sticky elements were working before, which is why they needed this update.
Exactly. In the older versions of Elementor Pro, the code for the sticky elements was always being loaded, even if there wasn't a sticky element on the page.
So even if you didn't need it?
Right. It was like packing your entire suitcase, even if you're just going away for the weekend.
Huh. Okay, that makes sense. So all that extra code, that was slowing down the websites.
Yeah, and even though we're talking about milliseconds here, it really does make a difference to users, and it affects how Google sees the website too.
Right, because Google cares about page speed,
Mm.
especially on mobile devices.
Exactly. They want to make sure people are having a good experience. And a slow website, it's just not a good experience.
Nope, definitely not. So how does this update fix the problem?
Well, they've basically redesigned how sticky elements are handled. Now the code only loads when there's actually a sticky element on the page.
Oh, so it's like they're only packing the essentials now.
Exactly.
I like it. All right, well, I'm already seeing why this is a big deal. So let's break down the benefits for our listeners. What can they expect to see once they update Elementor Pro?
Well, first of all, they're going to see faster loading times, which means people will be happier using the site. They'll be less likely to just give up and leave, and they'll probably be more likely to actually do what you want them to do on the site.
Yeah, that makes sense. Faster is always better when it comes to websites.
Right. And it's not just about the users. Google is going to like it too, because faster websites rank higher in search results.
So we're talking about a potential SEO boost just from this one update.
Yep, that's right.
That's awesome.
And there's more. The code is going to be cleaner too, which will make things easier for developers.
Oh, so it's not just about the front end of the website.
Right. This is going to help the people working behind the scenes as well.
That's great. Less frustration for everyone.
Ah,
Okay, so we've got faster loading times, better SEO, and cleaner code. Anything else we should mention?
yeah, there's one more benefit. This update is going to help reduce server load and bandwidth usage.
Can you explain what that means?
Sure. So every time someone visits your website, your server has to work to deliver all the files to their browser. And if you have a lot of traffic, or if your files are really big, it can put a lot of strain on your server.
Ah, I see. So this update helps lighten the load.
Exactly.
Got it.
By only loading the code that's absolutely necessary.
And that could potentially save website owners money on hosting costs.
Yep. And it also means the website is less likely to crash, even if there are a lot of people visiting it at the same time.
Okay, I'm convinced. This update sounds like a game changer. Now, I know our listeners are probably wondering, how do they actually implement this on their websites? Is it a complicated process?
Not at all. Elementor made this really easy to do. You just go into the Elementor editor, select the element you want to make sticky, and then go to the advanced settings.
Okay, sounds pretty simple so far. What happens in the advanced settings?
Well, you'll see a section for motion effects, and that's where you can make the element sticky. You can choose to stick it to the top of the screen or the bottom of the screen. And you can even customize things like when the sticky effect should start. Like maybe you only want it to stick after the user has scrolled down a certain amount.
Oh, wow. So there's a lot of flexibility there.
Yep.
I like that.
And once you've made your adjustments, you just preview the page to make sure everything looks good, and then hit publish.
It really is that easy, huh?
Yep, that's it.
Wow. I'm starting to think that everyone should be using sticky elements on their websites.
Well, they can be a really great tool for improving user experience and engagement. But like with any design element, it's important to use them strategically. You don't want to go overboard.
Right, you don't want to overdo it. Sometimes simplicity is best.
Exactly.
Great. So to recap, this Elementor Pro update might seem small, but it actually has a huge impact on website performance and efficiency. We're talking about faster loading times, improved SEO, cleaner code, reduced server load. It's a win-win for both website owners and users.
Absolutely. It really shows you how important it is to pay attention to the details and to optimize for efficiency.
I totally agree. Now, before we wrap things up, I have a question that's been on my mind. You mentioned how Elementor is now loading the code for sticky elements, only when it's needed. What other areas of web design could benefit from this kind of on-demand approach?
That's a great question, and it's a really important one. Because this idea of loading things on demand, it's becoming more and more important in web development. It's all about optimizing for speed and efficiency. And there are actually a lot of areas where we can apply this principle. Like what? Give me some examples.
Okay, well, think about fonts. A lot of websites load all their font files on every page, even if those fonts are only used on a few pages.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how could we use an on-demand approach for fonts?
It's a bit more technical, but you can basically use code to tell the website to only load specific font files when they're actually needed on the page.
Okay, so it's like saying, hey, website, only grab this font file if you see this specific element on the page.
Exactly.
I like it. What else could we optimize this way?
Well, images are another big one. High-resolution images look great, but they can be huge files, and they can really slow down a website.
Yeah, I've definitely been guilty of that. Uploading big images without optimizing them first.
We've all done it. But what if we only loaded those high-resolution images when they were absolutely necessary?
Interesting.
Like if someone clicks on an image to view it in a larger size, then yeah, go ahead and load the full resolution version. But for the initial page load, we could use a smaller optimized version. That still looks good, but loads much faster. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, it's a win-win because the website loads quickly, which keeps users happy and Google happy, but people who want to see the full resolution images, they still can.
I'm starting to see a lot of potential here. This on-demand approach could really change the way we design websites.
It could. It's all about being smart and efficient with how we load content.
It's like decluttering your digital space.
Exactly.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we move on, is there anything else you want to add about this on-demand approach?
I think the key takeaway is this on-demand approach. It's a new way of thinking about web design. It's about being more mindful of the resources we're using.
Yeah.
And finding ways to deliver content more efficiently. And ultimately, it leads to a better experience for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. It's about being strategic.
Exactly.
Well said. I think that's a great place to end this part of our conversation. Thanks so much for joining me for this deep dive. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners have too.
My pleasure. I always enjoy talking about web design.
And to our listeners, we hope you found this deep dive insightful and helpful. Remember, even small tweaks can make a big difference when it comes to website performance. So go forth, optimize, and create amazing online experiences.
I love it. Not at all. Elementor's made it super user-friendly.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you just go into the Elementor editor, select the element you want to make sticky, and head over to the advanced settings.
Okay, and then what?
You'll see a section for motion effects, and that's where you can make it sticky. You can stick it to the top of the screen, the bottom, and you can even customize when the sticky effect kicks in. Like maybe you want it to stick after the user scrolls down a bit.
So you can really fine-tune it.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, and once you've got it set up how you like, you just preview the page to make sure it looks good, and then hit publish.
So easy.
Super easy.
I'm telling you, everyone's going to be using sticky elements now.
Well, I mean, they're a great tool, but you got to use them strategically, like any design element.
Right, don't want to overdo it.
Exactly.
Sometimes less is more. Okay, so just to recap, this Elementor Pro update might seem like a small change, but it has a big impact on website performance, faster loading times, better SEO, cleaner code. It's a win-win.
It really is.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I've been thinking about this idea of loading things on demand, like Elementor's doing with the sticky element code. What other parts of web design could we apply this to?
That's a fantastic question, and it's really at the heart of what modern web development is all about, speed and efficiency.
Right.
And yeah, there are tons of areas where we can use this approach.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, let's start with fonts. A lot of websites load all their font files on every page.
Yeah.
But what if a font is only used on one page? It doesn't need to be loaded everywhere.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? How do we load fonts on demand?
It's a bit technical,
Yeah.
but essentially you use code to tell the website, hey, only load this font if this specific element is on the page.
Okay, so we're giving the website specific instructions.
Yep.
I like that.
So what else?
Images.
Oh yeah, images can be huge.
Huge. High-resolution images look great, but they can really slow a website down.
Ugh, tell me about it.
So what if we only loaded those big images when we really needed them? Like if someone clicks on an image to see a bigger version, then we load the full resolution image. But for the initial page load, we could use a smaller, optimized version.
So 2 versions of the same image.
Exactly. One for speed and one for quality when you need it.
That's really smart.
It is. It keeps the website fast, and it gives users the best possible experience.
I love it. This on-demand approach has so much potential.
It does.
It could really change the way we design for the web.
It's about being more intentional with what we load and when we load it.
Right, it's like decluttering your digital space.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so we've talked about fonts and images. What else can we optimize?
Well, I think the main takeaway here is that this on-demand approach, it's a new way of thinking about web design. It's about being more mindful of the resources we're using and finding ways to deliver content more efficiently.
Right, it's not about just throwing everything at the user at once.
Exactly.
It's about giving them what they need when they need it.
And as technology keeps evolving, we're going to see even more ways to do this.
It's exciting to think about the possibilities.
It really is.
Well, this has been a really insightful conversation.
I agree.
Thanks for joining me for this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope you found this helpful. Remember, even small changes can make a big difference. So go out there and optimize your websites.
And create amazing experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a ton we can do. Videos are another big one. You know those autoplay videos that start as soon as you land on a page?
Oh, yeah. Those can be annoying.
They can be. And they're terrible for performance. They slow down the whole page. So what if we only loaded those videos when the user actually wants to watch them?
So instead of auto-playing them.
Right. We could just have a static image or a thumbnail, and then when the user clicks on it, boom, the video loads and starts playing.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's cool.
It's all about giving the user control.
Exactly.
So basically, this on-demand approach, it's about being smarter about how we load content.
Yep. It's about loading things when we need them, not just all at once.
It's like being a good waiter.
Uh-huh.
You don't bring out all the courses at the same time.
Right.
You bring them out one at a time.
Then the diner is ready for them.
Exactly. Well, I think that's a perfect analogy and a great way to sum up this whole conversation.
I agree.
This Elementor Pro update is just one example of how we can make the web a faster and more efficient place.
By being more strategic about how we load things.
Exactly. Well, thanks again for joining me for this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this conversation and that you learned a few things about how to optimize your websites for performance. Remember, every little bit helps.
It does.
So go out there, make the web a better place.
One website at a time.
That's right.